That was Invisible Touch. Tom Alter's in studio.
94.3. You're listening to Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K. Radio 1.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. It's great to be here on a rainy morning.
Yeah, and this must be a nostalgic place for you because the midday's on the ground on the first floor and you've done a lot of work for them.
Just talking about the midday office back in the 80s and the changes that I've seen down through the years, but I love midday and I've always been close to associated.
Tariq's traveling, otherwise you'd have loved to be here to say hi to you.
He's a great man.
Isn't he? Lovely. Okay, this is you back again doing what you're very passionate about, which is different avatar.
You're absolutely
so
right.
talk about that.
A very different avatar is called Zaban, and I don't want to go into jargon, but basically it's a look at gender sensitization, how it can be understood, how it can be possibly dealt with. And since obviously I'm of one particular gender, I told Mishti, who's organizing this, I don't want to be the token male on this. Otherwise, that'll be gender sensitization against males. But since we know each other well, she took that with a pinch of salt. Basically, we're looking at how and why women so easily get put into brackets and how possibly women can get out of those brackets and be themselves. That's in a nutshell what we're doing. We're doing it through poetry, through theatre. There's also a forum which can be conducted for corporates. But the part that I'm involved in is a second half called Zaban. And I love poetry, and I'm very happy that Mishti has allowed me to use poetry as a way of expressing thoughts and possible solutions. We're trying to be positive. We're being very straightforward, but positive also.
So how's it going to function? These are not solo pieces. There are other participants.
There are solo pieces. There's a brilliant piece in which a woman talks about her journey from being a single woman to becoming a biwi and a bahu and trying to balance all the parts of her lives. The part that I'm directly involved with is a look at a true story of a woman who's blind and how she overcome her obstacles. So we've used her true story to illustrate how not only a woman who's challenged, but any person who's challenged, the tremendous dedication and sheer hard work and positive attitude that they need to move forward in life. And this woman has. So we've used her life as a backdrop. And then in the end, I'm again reciting some very, very beautiful gender-sensitive poetry. I think that's the right word to use. Written by a very dear friend of mine who happens to be a man, but he's dealing with very delicate issues. So in the end, I'll be presenting poetry. But there's also the use of dance, there's the use of theatre. It's a dramatic, theatrical way of expressing concern and, as I said, possible solutions.
I'm so glad you're saying that there's dance and a whole lot of other aspect because when I was having this discussion with Mabanu Modi Kotwal during the Vajana monologues,
right.
One very important thing she said is when you deal with topics of gender sensitization, it's very important to put it forth with entertainment.
That's right.
Because otherwise people tend to think of it in a very morose fashion, and it's not. What you're doing is entertainment at the end of the day.
It is. In fact, the solo piece, which I'm not involved in, which another person presents, it's funny. It hits you very hard, but it's funny because this woman has to deal with 29 different things at the same time. And there's this most incredible line. She finally collapses. And she says, I have to be in a hospital to finally be at peace with myself. And that's the most beautiful line. And this woman who's reading it is not a professional actress. She's in fact a doctor. She's so good because she's telling her own story. Not directly her story, but she can understand the story very, very well.
Okay. Now, if we were to register, if I wanted to take part in this, where can one register?
Absolutely. I've got the information here.
Yeah.
On the email, you go to play.innerkatha, INNERKATHA. I'll repeat that, play.innerkatha@gmail.com. And I'll give two numbers where we can call up to register for passes. 993006288. I'll repeat that, 993006288 or 98210-22503, 98210-22503. And it's tomorrow, the 20th of June. The forum starts at 3 o'clock. The play begins at 5 o'clock at the Rang Sharda Auditorium in Bandra West. Okay, that's Rang Sharda, Bandra, and of course you can check local listings. Tom Alter's here, and there's a fabulous performance that he's put together.
This is happening at the Rang Sharda and tomorrow, and he's really, really excited and passionate about it. So, who are your partners in crime and rhyme?
Well, I wish I could take the credit that you just gave me. I have really not put this together. A very, very sensitive and very talented woman. Mishti Verma has actually put this together, and along with Rajesh Tiwari. But in talking about myself, I forgot there is a beautiful forum on gender sensitization, which I'm not directly involved with. That's probably why I slipped. It's called India. So Inner Katha, which is the group, presents this forum on gender sensitization called India, in which women speak. Some outstanding women talk about the challenges they've faced and how they've overcome them. So it's more than a forum. It's really a personal statement of trust and belief and self-determination, and the belief that you can, with a little help from your friends, there's a Beatles line.
Yeah.
You can succeed.
Yeah. Okay, now you've got where to register, how to register, the performance, all the details. That's what we're doing. We're moving on to other pastures now.
Fantastic.
I do a YouTube on Sachin Tendulkar's first ever interview, and there pops up a much younger, handsome as ever, Tom.
Now you've just redeemed yourself. You headed off in the wrong direction there.
So, where was this? Shivaji Park?
No, this was at... we started out at Hindu Gymkhana.
Okay.
It's between Islam Gymkhana and Hindu Gymkhana. And just quick story. Sunil Gavaskar in one of my idols, when he was temporarily the editor of Sports Week, which is midday, of course. In the middle of 88, he said, Tom, you know the two best batsmen in Bombay or today? Then it was Bombay. I'm being correct. I'm saying Bombay on purpose. He said Dilip Vengsarkar and Sachin Tendulkar. And I said, who? This was before the partnership with Kambli.
Oh, this wasn't at Sardashram School, that massive
before that. So Sunil Gavaskar with his ear to the ground because he was such a great man. So when he said this, to mere kaan khade ho gaye, maine kaha. So then at the end of 88 with Tariq and with Midday, we started making this sports film. And we went to interview Vengsarkar he was practicing it.
Who was a massive star at the
time. He was one of my great heroes. And there was Sachin, 15 years old, batting. So, and I said, Dilip, this is Sachin. He said, yeah, this is Sachin. I said, Dilip, what do you think? This is Dilip Vengsarkar's words, and this was just at the beginning of 89. And he said, this man will play for India within a year. If he's got any weakness, it's that he hits the ball too hard outside the off stump. And he's going to get caught out a lot outside the off stump. You check his career.
Yeah, correct.
So then since we had Ayaz was there, I was there, and we said, Sachin, he says, yes, I am ready. And we took off, and we did what you see on YouTube is a very limited version. It's actually about a 10-minute interview. What you see on YouTube, I think, is 2 or 3 minutes.
Correct.
But it was an experience of a lifetime, and that man, at the age of 15, he just scored a Ranji Trophy century in his first match against Saurashtra. The confidence, almost the cockiness of that man. Man, he was a boy. And as Vengsarkar said...
He's a man cub, like Rudyard Kipling.
Exactly. By the end of the year, he was playing for India, as Vengsarkar and Sunil did.
There's a particular point in that interview where you say, you enjoy fast bowlers or slow bowlers? You know, you're going to be facing all these fast bowling greats. And he goes, fast bowlers. Because it comes onto the bat. Almost as though...
Not on the bat, on the batter.
On the bat.
He's so amazing. Yes, the ball comes on the batter. Look at the man. Then I asked about Hirwani, the great Hirwani.
The leg spinner.
Knocking down wickets left, right and centre. So I said, have you faced Hirwani? He said, yes. I said, can you read his googly? He said, yes, as if that was the stupidest thing anyone could ever ask. Of course he could read his googly. 15 years old.
So does he remember that? I mean, when you bump into him here and there.
We've stayed in touch. in touch. And I have a house in Mussoorie, and he's very much part of the Mussoorie. He's got, he spends a good deal of his time now in Mussoorie, very close to our house. And we've stayed in touch.
Lovely. It's Alcazar crying at the discotheque. Post this some messages, and I will put up pictures of Tom Alter in studio at HRISHIKAY on Twitter. You can follow their handle, and on Facebook it's the Radio 1 Mumbai Facebook page. That's facebook.com/radio1.mum. Like the page and you'll see it on the timeline. 9:15. We'll be back in a bit.
94.3. You're listening to Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Radio 1.
Tom Alter's here. He's really a treasure chest of stories, I tell you. Film, cricket, otherwise theatre. Okay, let's talk about the great Satyajit Ray, or Satyajit Rai, as the Bongs would call him, Shatranj Ke Khiladi.
Manikda.
And Shatranj Ke Khiladi, his poetic endeavor on screen, if I could ever call it that, had you in it. So memories of that, take us through it. And you were just saying briefly off the mic that you revisited the film very recently.
I just thought I was flying back from USA the other day, and I revisited several films, including two of Dilip Kumar's films. And then I saw Shatranj Ki Khiladi on the flight. And I was quite stunned. As I said, if you meet a friend after many years, then you see the truth about that friend. When you see a film after many years, the same thing happens. It was a great experience working with Manikda, and I could speak for 2 or 3 hours on it. But to make it as precise as possible, I have worked in close to, say, 300 films, which means probably worked to close to 200 film directors. I have never met or worked with any director who was as precise as Manikda. You don't see it in his films, but in his making, he was so precise. My character recites a couplet in that scene with Richard Attenborough, and there was a discussion on the second line of the misra of that couplet, whether it's ka or ko. Now Manikda didn't know Urdu, but he saw that is Shama Zaidi and Javed Siddiqui having this discussion whether it should be ka or ko, and he stopped the shooting. He said, I'll give you 2 days, 3 days, how many days you want. You make up your mind whether this Wajid Ali Shah couplet should have ka or ko. And I'm not shooting until you make up your mind and come to a definite decision. That's how particular the man was. And of course, it turned out to be ka, which was the original thing.
Did you actually take 2 days, or was it?
Well, it took 2-3 hours. Dhoka hai asman ka is the couplet, Mere Ghubar par, and the other one person said Dhoka Asman Ko. Anyway, the man was passionate and precise, which is a tremendous combination. Many precise people are not passionate, and most passionate people are not precise. He was unique because he was a combination of precision
and Farooq Sheikh was sitting in the same chair as you. God bless him. God bless his soul.
What a man.
And Farooq Sahab was talking about how Manikda would obsess even about the lighting.
Yes.
Saying, that evening scene has to be shot in this particular light.
He handled the camera. He handled the camera. He was not a one-man army, because he was not an army. He never dictated things. But he was so much in control of everything he did. And he didn't know Urdu, so he got two very fine people, Shama Zaidi and Javed Siddiqui, to help him. And he got Amjad, of course, to play Wajid Ali Shah. And I'll tell you, when we were supposed to shoot, Amjad had a very bad accident traveling to Goa.
Ouch.
And his whole chest he was at the steering in it. And so Manikda waited for 6 months for this man to recover. And I met Amjad at least 2-3 times. He was there in Nanavati Hospital. And Amjad, the great man, you're talking about Farooq Sheikh, Amjad Khan, he's a great man. He said, Tommy, are you kamal hai? This man is waiting for me for 6 months. And Manikda said, no, he's my Wajid Ali Shah, nobody else.
Fantastic.
He was a man, as I said, precision and passion, which made that man obviously legend, but great in the truest sense.
Up ahead, this is Higher Love, Stevie Winwood. When we come back, conversation about Dilip Kumar's autobiography and the 2 movies that Tom's done with Dilip Kumar. And of course, more about that performance tomorrow at Rangshada. What a career, Stevie Winwood. I was just saying to Tom Alter that he was in a band with Eric Clapton called Blind Faith, and then the Traffic Man he was known as, because there's another band called Traffic, and here he is going solo. Completely poppy, different from the bands that he's been with. Tom Alter in conversation with me. Okay, so Rangshada tomorrow, 3 o'clock.
Yes.
Who's performing?
Well, talking about Blind Faith, there's a most amazing lady, Preeti Monga. She's the first visually impaired aerobics instructor, and she's also very celebrated. So Blind Faith, she personifies Blind Faith. And she's going to be there speaking, and we're doing a presentation around her life, as I mentioned. Urvashi Saxena, who's the Chief Income Tax Commissioner, obviously a woman, I believe the first woman to be the Chief Income Tax Commissioner in Mumbai. She's going to be the keynote speaker. And then Dr. Kanan, who's this amazing personality, she's doing this, as I mentioned before, this piece about how a woman has to adopt to so many roles in life, and finally she finds peace of mind in a hospital when she totally collapses. So she's
also a homeopath, if I'm not mistaken. She went to college with my brother, my younger brother.
This you'll have to check with the younger brother. I'm not too sure about that, but it could very well be. And then, as I said, it's going to be an afternoon to evening, and I like the timing. It's not the typical 6 to 9. It's 3 to about 6. It's a time when you reflect a little bit more rather than just being entertained. So it's going to be something very, very special. And I've been told that there's a Facebook community that is Inner Katha India, all one word.
One
you
word,
want to get onto
India.
the Facebook's Inner Katha India, YINDIA in the end, and Inner Katha before that. And it's going to be something unique, and I hope a lot of people come, and I cannot say they'll enjoy it, but they can share it with us, and that's the main thing.
Well, very well put. Dilip Kumar Saab, there's an autobiography out. I've been begging and scrounging that he come over, but ill health does not permit him. So I probably will have to go to him for the interview. But here are two wonderful movies that you've done with him, which is Kranti, Manoj Kumar Saab's Kranti, and Vidhata, which is Subhash Ghai's Vidhata, with Sanjay Dutt also. So talk about him and your experience.
Yusuf Saab, what can I say? Meri aankhein nam ho rahi hain. On the flight, the same flight where I watched Shatranj Ki Khiladi, I watched Madhumati, and I also watched Devdas of his. I was stunned. And this man is not, to say he's a legend is to put him into a bracket. He's much more than a legend. I'll just quickly tell, the first time I met him, 75 की बात होगी, and ये उर्दू में कहना होगा, बताना होगा. I said, यूसुफ साहब एक बात बताइए कि अच्छी एक्टिंग का राज क्या है? बेझिझक उस महान आदमी ने कहा शेरो शायरी. In other words, if you want to become a great actor, you have to love poetry. And that is the secret of this man. When he speaks a dialogue, and in Devdas there's so many dialogues, even in Madhumati, he speaks it as a poet. So that the obsession, not obsession, the love or passion for language, the way to express things in a very poetic way. What he was telling me, and what just in that one word, Shero Shairi, he was saying, Tom, you will find true expression through poetry. And I just quickly again, when we were shooting for Vidhata, we were sitting in a boat waiting to come on to the shore for one particular shot. So काफी समय था हमारे पास. I said, Dilip bhai, in the film Devdas, when you come back and you meet Paro after a long time, you say, Paro, तुम कितनी बड़ी हो गई हो? I said, how did you plan for that shot? He says, I said, आपने तैयारियां क्या की? He says, तैयारियां क्या करनी थी? हम तो तैयार थे ही. Why should we prepare? We were ready.
Beautiful.
This is the man, and खुदा उनको लंबी उम्र बख्शे. He's Raj Saab and Dev Saab have left us, and now he's this man, and he's a connection to not only cinematic greatness but to the tradition and parampara of our nation.
Yeah. I'm Just a Girl by No Doubt. Post this some messages, and I'm going to put up more pictures of Tom Alter. It's facebook.com/radio1.mumma.one.mum. Like the page, you'll see them on the timeline. And at HRISHIKY on Twitter, you can follow that handle, and you'll see the tweet on the timeline. I've just been saying to myself, and I said it to Tom Alter too, he strolled in here a little before 9 o'clock, and all he's done since then is deflected glory on other people. And I'm not saying those are not great people, they're wonderful people, but look at this man himself. I mean, a sports journalist, deeply passionate about cricket. Some of his writing, some of his interviews are epic, of epic proportions, and of course his Urdu Zuban and the kind of acting that he's done, both in theatre as well as television. I've got to ask you, where did this passion for cricket as well as Urdu poetry come in? I mean, was it, you grew up where? Did you grow up in the hills? In Missouri? Yeah. So talk about that. You play cricket most importantly.
I still play cricket.
Yeah.
Urdu Zaman because in the era that I was growing up, which was just after independence, in that part of UP, then it was UP, Western UP, everybody spoke Urdu. And this horrible misconception that Urdu is the language of one particular religion, nobody even thought about it. My father was a padri. He used to preach in Urdu. He read the Bible in Urdu, and it was the language that he loved most of all. So Urdu, we grew up. I began studying Urdu when I joined the Film Institute in 1972. But the passion for Urdu was our childhood. And cricket, we were, because of a slightly American background, we were all baseball fans. In fact, we played baseball at school in Woodstock. But my father had a secretary, Jwala Prasad Mandrelli, who was a cricket fanatic. And my brother who was 3 years older, he must have been about 11 or 12, I was about 9 or 10. And JP, was his pet name, said, तुम लोग क्या ये baseball खेलते हो? कोई खेल है? Cricket हम सिखाएंगे. And the great Jwala Prasad Mandrelli taught my brother and I cricket. And one day when we thought we were great, my brother was a good player. JP said, हम तुमको दिखाएंगे. He bowled 6 balls to my brother, and he clean bowled him 6 times out of 6. And then he said, अब तुम आगे कुछ सीखने की कोशिश करो. So this was the past. Then cricket, we grew up in that golden era. And when you had your Vijay Manjarikas, you had Buddhi Kundaran, you had, of course, Nawaba Pataudi, then the spin trio came in. So cricket was a passion, it's still a passion, and I've been very fortunate to actually play with people like Sunil Gavaskar and Saeed Kirmani. I never got a chance to play with Sachin, but I've been very blessed. And as I said, growing up in North India in the 50s and 60s, there were three great passions. One was cricket, one was films, and one of them was, of course, romance. So I was able to be exposed to all three of these simultaneously. So I've been very, very fortunate.
Two parallel questions, actually. One is that cinema has changed so much. You did say that Dilip Kumar had the foresight to realize that poetry would dying is a very strong word, but would fade away.
You use the right word. Yeah.
And the actors of this generation are not that adept at perhaps Urdu, Sher-o-Shairi and dialogue delivery. The other end of the spectrum, here's cricket. With the advent of the 2020 game, and who would have thought Kerry Packer's pajama cricket would ultimately come down to this?
He was a pioneer.
He was a pioneer. So how have you taken to the change in cricket and the change in cinema?
Well, the change in cricket I've taken very badly too. I'm not a fan of IPL.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm against IPL. That's my own personal thing, but I just think that the great sport did not need IPL. As far as poetry and cinema goes, I'm just taking an example. Ritik played the role in apna kya naam tha film ka Jodha Akbar.
Yeah.
Now he tried very hard, and God bless him, he really tried to speak Urdu, but because in his background Urdu was not part of him. No matter how hard he tried, and I said hats off to him, he just didn't sound like he was speaking from his heart, because Urdu was not in his heart. Many great things are, but not Urdu. So it's an example of a man who strived might and main to speak good Urdu, but unki fitrat mein wo cheez thi nahi. And it's poetry it should be part of business, it should be part of life, it should be part of romance, it should be part of art, it should be a part of some of the great politicians like say Maulana Azad, Nehru, they loved poetry. And you could see it in the way that they tried to run the country.
And you played the Maulana.
I played this. It's a great honor to play Maulana. I still play Maulana. And the man was you could do an entire 2-day interview just on that man. So yes, poetry is not something you can force on anybody. But somehow in the way we talk and in the way we deal with each other, poetry has to be brought back. And all you young guys who want to patao girls, let me tell you, one of the best ways to do it is through poetry.
Good old world charm.
And the best example is Gulzar. Gulzar is now in late 70s. I've never seen a more romantic man than Gulzar. I've never seen more women fainting over him. He's very handsome also, but poetry.
Correct.
And so if that's what you're interested in, but you cannot fake it.
Yeah, it's got to come.
Fake poetry is horrible. But genuine poetry works.
Madonna, Beautiful Stranger. Up ahead, I'm going to ask Tom Alter what kind of music he enjoys. Zuban Theatre Monologues on Gender Sensitization with Tom Alter. That's Rang Sharda Bandra tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Okay, before we say bye-bye, we've got there's a wonderful thing you told me. 6 degrees or 3 degrees of separation between George Harrison and yourself.
Rishikesh is at the center of it, my friend. That's where he was. Yeah. And a very dear friend of mine, Ajit, he's got the Pratap Music House in Ashley Hall in Dehradun. And he and his brother used to supply sitars to George Harrison. So I didn't meet George Harrison, but I know very, very well the two brothers who supplied sitars to him. So I couldn't meet the star, but I met his sitars. In Rishikesh.
The Maharshi Mahesh Yogi years, and of course his dear friend Pandit Ravi Shankar was teaching him how to play the sitar. And Bob Dylan and the Beatles are abiding passions in your life.
They're very deep at the core of Rajesh Khanna, and the Beatles and Bob Dylan are at the core of my existence. Any Dylan song you want to play, but we talked about Don't Think Twice, It's Alright. It's one of the most amazing songs. He basically tells a woman that that you've ruined me, but then he says, but don't think twice, it's alright. I mean, you've screwed me, you've ruined me, you made my life miserable, but don't think twice, it's alright. It's an amazing song. I absolutely love it. And Beatles, any song that you pick out. We talked about Hey Jude. There's a little story.
Sure.
There's a lovely lady, her name is June. And the first time, in those days, we used to hear these songs over BBC radio. Right? So it never was too clear. I'm talking about the 60s. I thought the lyric was Hey June. And I was thrilled. I said, wow, this is June. And then my friend said, well, it's Jude, it's not June. So my heart was slightly broken, but what a song, Hey Jude. And The Long and Winding Road is a song which I've always associated with Mussoorie, because to get to Mussoorie, you've got to travel a long and winding road. So that's another favorite. I mean, you can go on and on and on.
Radhika on Twitter, the lovely Tom Alter, so charming. I'm sure this isn't the Mumbai influence, but the lovely hills of Landor, poetry in motion. They're your fans.
She knows Landau. She's right to the eye of the storm, Landau.
Girish Barve, Tom sir, never thought that I will ever get the opportunity to tell you that I love you. Thanks, Hrishi K. Oh, thank you so much, Girish.
That's very sweet of him, very sweet.
Himanshu Shinde, good morning, buddy. It's great to hear this man's voice. Mr. Tom Alter, whose movies and serials I've seen while growing up. Great actor.
Very sweet people, my gosh, I've got tears in my eyes.
Thank you so much for rolling in. It's been such a special day. Special day for me.
Thank you.
Okay, that's Tom Alter. Bob Dylan, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right coming up, and we're going to back that up with Hey Jude, Dylan and Beatles thingy.
Do come tomorrow. Do come tomorrow at 3 o'clock to Ramsha.